Good morning, everyone. Today I have a plant profile for you, and we're actually over here in the chicken run portion of the food forest. If you've been following along, you may recall when I planted this grapevine here, which had a lot of growth this year. It did tremendous for us, produced some nice large clusters of grapes. We were quite impressed with this variety. And I really just wanted to shine a spotlight on it because I had never heard of it until a couple years ago when I picked one up at my local nursery. And this variety is called Ruby Seedless Grape. It's a table grape, highly productive, heavy fruit sets. And so the way that I've been growing these for the last couple years is I planted them on either side of this section of carport here, which I turned into part of my chicken coop. So I just got a tarp shading the area, and we've got the actual coop and the nesting boxes right back there in the corner. But on each post here we put one of these Ruby Seedless. Now you only need one. It's a self-fruitful plant, another benefit to this variety. And if you aren't aware, grapes are one of the easiest things in the world to propagate. When they do go dormant, they're deciduous, they lose all their leaves, and you're left with some wood that looks like this. So to propagate, all you're going to do is take some of that dormant wood, and you want it, if you can, to get it at about the diameter of a pencil. So not too thick, not too thin. And if you can take an entire vine off about 6 feet in length or longer, that's going to be best. And then all you're going to do is go around starting from the base of that cutting, and you're going to take several cuttings, making sure that each one has 4 of these nodes. It can be helpful too to make a diagonal cut on the top of all your cuttings so you can distinguish what's the top from the bottom. If you put this in inverted, it's not going to grow. So flat cuts on the bottom and diagonal cuts on top. Now this wood is old, it's a bit crispy. You don't want to do this with old dormant wood. You want to do this with wood that has recently lost its leaves and it's still fresh when you prune it. You don't want to wait and let it dry out like this. But a 1 to 2 year old plant, you could get dozens and dozens of cuttings like this. Then what you want to do is get yourself a larger pot, like a 5-gallon pot is good, something that's deep enough to facilitate this cutting going down 3 nodes deep. And you can take the bottom of that cutting, dip it in some sort of a rooting hormone to help it to root. That's going to really help to increase your odds of success. And then before you stick the cutting with the rooting hormone in, go ahead and make a hole. That way you're not rubbing all that hormone off. And stick it down, again 3 nodes deep, cover it up, and you can put several cuttings in a larger pot like this and separate them later. Once you start to get some new growth and you've got some root development, you can separate those out, make multiple plants. So you can see a vine like this one could be a prime candidate for propagation, but it's not dormant yet, so we're going to wait till later in the season. Once you got those cuttings stuck, just make sure you keep the soil moist. Now, prior to growing the Ruby, we had another popular variety, the red Flame Seedless. It's another table grape, and we've always been happy with that as well. You can see we got some nice mature red flame varieties back here. There's 2 vines growing on this trellis, and we got a nice little harvest again this year, but they are a much smaller grape. We leave some of these little grapes just dangling for the birds. And you can see how some of these here are turning into raisins right on the vine. That's another use for these grapes. You can dry them out, turn them into raisins. So the Ruby variety of table grape will grow in USDA climate zones 7 through 9 without any issues. It does like some summer heat and prefers full sun to part sun. This area actually gets a decent amount of shade later in the day, and these vines have done well for us so far. But you can see I'm growing these all along the frame of the car canopy. But grapes are very versatile and they're fun to grow, ornamental. You can grow them up a wall, an arbor, some posts, any type of trellis. Just be creative. They can also create a nice privacy screen and shade throughout the summer months. They are deciduous. They will lose their leaves in the wintertime. Some other tips would be to start out with some good soil when you're planting, something that drains well, has some nutrients in there, and also keep these watered throughout the summer months. You're going to have a higher productivity if you do so. If you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor, just quickly hit that like button. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. We're going to be doing more plant profile videos just like this, showcasing some of the different plants that have the highest production out here in the Plant Abundance Backyard Food Forest. We're year 9. For those of you new to the channel, we started with a typical backyard lawn, a lot of debris, a lot of weeds, nothing growing that was edible, and we've turned it into our own little backyard paradise, just full of edible crops. And you can do the same thing. It's really quite easy. If you want to learn more about that, get inspired, then stay tuned. We got plenty more to come.